You're losing a little bit of memory every single day. And most people over 70 have no idea it's happening until it's already noticeable. Not because something is wrong with you specifically, because of what's on your plate. In the next several minutes, I'm going to walk you through a 3-step food fix that can genuinely help protect your recall as you age. I want to be honest with you up front. I'm not going to tell you this will boost your memory by some flashy multiple like 6 times. That's not a real number. And if a headline promises you that, be skeptical of it. What I can tell you is that the research on diet and cognitive decline is real. It's substantial. And for a lot of people over 70, a few specific changes make a measurable, meaningful difference. I'm Dr. John Paul. I've spent years working with patients navigating exactly this concern. The slow, quiet worry that memory isn't what it used to be. I want to walk you through what's actually happening in the brain as we age, why food plays a bigger role than most people realize, and the 3 specific steps backed by real research that you can start using today. Why memory changes after 70. Let's start with what's actually happening, because understanding the mechanism makes the fix make sense. The brain, like every other organ, is affected by 3 things as we age: inflammation, blood flow, and nutrient availability. Inflammation is the first piece. Chronic, low-grade inflammation, the kind that doesn't cause pain but quietly persists in the background, has been linked in research to faster cognitive decline. It affects the hippocampus specifically, which is the part of your brain most responsible for forming and retrieving memories. Blood flow is the second piece. Your brain uses roughly 20% of your body's blood supply, even though it's a small fraction of your body weight. As blood vessels stiffen with age, the same stiffening that affects the heart and other organs, the brain gets a slightly reduced, less efficient supply of oxygen and nutrients. Over years, this contributes to what's sometimes called vascular cognitive decline, distinct from Alzheimer's disease but often overlapping with it. High blood pressure, if left unmanaged over decades, accelerates this stiffening, which is one more reason blood pressure control matters as much for your brain as it does for your heart. Nutrient availability is the third, and possibly the most overlooked piece. As we age, the stomach naturally produces less acid, which is essential for absorbing certain nutrients, particularly vitamin B12. At the same time, many older adults are on medications, like certain acid reflux drugs or metformin for blood sugar, that further reduce B12 absorption. The result is that a significant number of people over 70 are walking around with a genuine B12 deficiency without knowing it, and B12 deficiency has been directly linked to memory problems, brain fog, and even symptoms that can be mistaken for early dementia. In some documented cases, correcting a significant B12 deficiency has reversed cognitive symptoms that had been misattributed to normal aging or even early dementia, which is exactly why this deficiency deserves more attention than it usually gets in a short office visit. Put those 3 together: background inflammation, reduced blood flow, and quiet nutrient gaps, and you have the real explanation for why memory often changes after 70. None of it is really about losing brain cells the way people picture it. It's about the brain's environment slowly becoming less supportive of the memory processes that used to work automatically. The research worth knowing about. I want to mention one study by name because it's one of the most solid pieces of research in this area. Researchers at Rush University studied a way of eating called the MIND diet, a combination of the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, specifically designed around foods that support brain health. Published in the journal Alzheimer's and Dementia, the study followed older adults over several years and found that those who most closely followed the MIND diet had a meaningfully slower rate of cognitive decline compared to those who didn't, the equivalent, by the researchers' own comparison, of being several years younger cognitively. That's the honest, real number worth paying attention to, not a dramatic multiplier, but a genuine years-long difference in how sharp someone's thinking stays into their 70s, 80s, and beyond. The Mind Diet forms the backbone of the 3 steps I'm about to walk you through. Step 1. Build meals around brain-protective plants. The first step is straightforward. Shift your plate toward the specific plant foods that show up again and again in brain health research: leafy greens, berries, and nuts. Leafy greens, panache, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard are rich in folate, vitamin K, and lutein, all of which have been associated in research with slower cognitive decline. The Rush University research specifically found that people eating at least 1 serving of leafy greens a day showed a meaningfully slower decline in memory and thinking speed compared to those who rarely ate them. Berries, particularly blueberries and strawberries, are rich in flavonoids, plant compounds with strong antioxidant properties. Research from Harvard's Nurses' Health Study found that women who ate more berries had a slower rate of cognitive aging, with the effect estimated at delaying decline by up to 2.5 years in the highest consuming group. Nuts, walnuts in particular, provide a plant-based omega-3 fat, along with vitamin E, both linked to better cognitive performance in older adults. How to use this step? Aim for a serving of leafy greens most days. Even a handful in a smoothie, soup, or sandwich counts. Add a half cup of berries a few times a week, fresh or frozen. Include a small handful of walnuts as a daily snack or salad topping. This isn't about eating perfectly every day. It's about making these 3 categories your default reach, rather than something you have occasionally. Step 2. Get real omega-3s into your week. The second step addresses the blood flow and inflammation piece directly. Fatty fish, twice a week. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, and trout are rich in 2 specific omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, which have been studied extensively for their anti-inflammatory effects and their role in maintaining the structure of brain cell membranes. Some observational research has linked regular fatty fish consumption to a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia, likely through a combination of reduced inflammation and improved blood vessel function. If you don't eat fish or don't enjoy it, an algae-based omega-3 supplement is a reasonable alternative, worth discussing with your doctor, especially if you're on blood thinners, since omega-3s can have a mild blood-thinning effect themselves. How to use this step? Aim for 2 palm-sized servings of fatty fish a week. Canned salmon, sardines, and mackerel are inexpensive, shelf-stable, and just as beneficial as fresh. If cost or preparation is a barrier, canned sardines on crackers or in a salad is one of the simplest ways to hit this target without cooking a full meal. Step 3. Check and correct the B12 gap. The third step is the one I think gets overlooked the most, and it's less about adding a new superfood and more about closing a gap that's extremely common after 70. As I mentioned earlier, reduced stomach acid and certain common medications make B12 deficiency far more prevalent in older adults than most people realize. Estimates suggest a meaningful percentage of adults over 70 have suboptimal B12 levels. Because B12 is essential for nerve function and the production of the protective coating around nerve fibers, low levels can produce symptoms that look a lot like normal age-related memory decline. Forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, a kind of mental fog. The encouraging part is that when B12 deficiency is the actual cause, correcting it can lead to real, sometimes fairly quick, improvement. How to use this step? First, ask your doctor for a simple blood test to check your B12 level. This is quick, inexpensive, and often not ordered unless you specifically request it. If your levels are low, your doctor may recommend a B12 supplement, or, in some cases, an injection, since absorption through the gut can be part of the problem. If your levels are normal, you can still support your intake through B12-rich foods like eggs, dairy, and fortified cereals, or a general B-complex supplement, especially if you eat little meat or dairy. This step matters because you can eat all the berries and salmon in the world, but if an underlying B12 deficiency is quietly driving your memory symptoms, the other two steps alone won't fully address it. Testing takes the guesswork out. Two real examples. I worked with a patient I'll call Frank, 74, who came in concerned that his memory was going. He'd start telling a story and lose his train of thought, or walk into a room and forget why. His family had started gently joking about it, which stung more than he let on, and he privately worried it was the beginning of something more serious. We ran some basic blood work first, and his B12 came back low normal, not dramatically deficient, but on the lower end of the range. At the same time, his diet was heavy on processed convenience foods, with very little fish, few vegetables beyond the occasional side salad, and almost no berries or nuts. We started him on a B12 supplement, and over the following months, shifted his groceries, frozen berries added to his morning oatmeal, walnuts as his afternoon snack instead of crackers, spinach folded into scrambled eggs, and canned salmon twice a week instead of processed lunch meat. 4 months later, Frank told me, half joking, that his wife had stopped finishing his sentences for him. His forgetfulness hadn't disappeared entirely. Some of that is a normal part of aging, but both he and his family noticed a real, tangible difference in his day-to-day sharpness, and just as importantly, his own confidence in his mind came back. Then there was Eleanor, 78, who'd actually been eating a fairly good diet already. She liked salmon, and she'd always been a salad person. Her concern was more specific. Her case is a good reminder that even a solid diet can't fully compensate for an underlying deficiency that needs to be identified and treated directly, which is exactly why Step 3, testing, matters as much as the food changes themselves. A bonus factor worth mentioning: sleep and hydration. While this video is focused on food, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention two closely related factors that amplify everything above: sleep and hydration. During deep sleep, the brain runs a natural cleanup process that clears out metabolic waste, including proteins associated with cognitive decline. Poor or fragmented sleep, which becomes more common after 70, can interfere with this process over time. If you're consistently getting less than 6 hours of sleep or waking frequently through the night, that's worth addressing alongside diet, sometimes even before diet, since diet changes are harder to notice the benefit of if you're chronically sleep-deprived underneath them. Hydration matters more than people expect, too. Mild dehydration, which is common in older adults because thirst signals naturally become less sensitive with age, can cause temporary difficulty concentrating and slower recall, symptoms that can easily be mistaken for more serious memory decline. A simple habit of a glass of water with each meal and one in between goes a long way toward ruling this out as a contributing factor. Neither of these replaces the 3 food steps, but they support the same goal, and they're worth keeping in mind as you make changes. Putting the 3 steps together. 1. Build meals around brain-protective plants, leafy greens most days, berries a few times a week, walnuts as a regular snack. 2. Get real omega-3s into your week 2 servings of fatty fish, fresh or canned. 3. Check your B12 and correct it if it's low. A simple blood test, followed by supplementation or dietary correction if needed. Neither of these replaces the 3 food steps, but they support the same goal, and they're worth keeping in mind as you make changes. Putting the 3 steps together. 1. Build meals around brain-protective plants, leafy greens most days, berries a few times a week, walnuts as a regular snack. 2. Get real omega-3s into your week 2 servings of fatty fish, fresh or canned. 3. Check your B12 and correct it if it's low. A simple blood test, followed by supplementation or dietary correction if needed. None of these require giving up meals you enjoy, buying anything exotic, or overhauling your entire kitchen. They're additions and small substitutions, layered in over the coming weeks. What to do this week? 1. Add a handful of leafy greens to one meal a day, folded into eggs, blended into a smoothie, or as a side salad. 2. Buy a bag of frozen berries and a small container of walnuts and place them somewhere visible in your kitchen as an easy daily grab. 3. Plan 2 fish-based meals for this week. Fresh, frozen, or canned all count. 4. Call your doctor's office and ask for a vitamin B12 blood test at your next visit, or sooner if you've been feeling unusually foggy. 5. If you're already on a reflux medication or metformin, mention it specifically when you ask about B12. It's directly relevant to your risk. This video is for general education, not personal medical advice, a diagnosis, or a treatment plan. Memory changes can have many causes, some of which need direct medical evaluation rather than dietary changes alone. Sudden memory loss, confusion, difficulty with familiar tasks, or getting lost in familiar places are symptoms that deserve a conversation with your doctor, not just a change in diet. If you're on medications, particularly blood thinners, talk to your doctor before adding a fish oil or omega-3 supplement. Before you go, if this kind of honest, research-backed breakdown is useful to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I publish a new video like this every week, always grounded in what the actual research shows rather than a dramatic headline number. And if someone in your life has been worried about their memory or joking about senior moments a little too often, send them this video. Sometimes the most helpful thing isn't a warning, it's just useful information handed to the right person at the right time. I'm Dr. John Paul. Small, consistent changes to what's on your plate, done for the right reasons, tend to add up to more than any single dramatic promise ever could.